listening to the Terrific Teacherpreneur, a podcast for teachers looking to grow a successful online business. Your host, Alex, was able to transform her Teachers Pay Teachers store from a small side hustle into a profitable full-time business. She now helps other teachers do the same. Listen along for actionable tips and helpful wisdom about business and marketing as a teacherpreneur. Here's your host, Alex.
Hey there, welcome to the Terrific Teacherpreneur podcast. Last episode, I was talking about marketing and specifically whether you should quit a certain platform if it's just not serving you, if it's sort of making you miserable, or you've given it a fair shot for like a year and it's still not made you money and all that. So if you haven't checked out the episode, be sure to. But I talked about what happens when I feel like you're on one platform that you want to get rid of. But this episode, I want to continue the conversation and talk about marketing in general. So all the marketing, like whether you should literally just stop marketing altogether. This is a big decision to make, but honestly, I think there probably are a large amount of you listening right now that this probably applies to, and I really want you to take this seriously because it could have a massive impact on your business. So, should you quit marketing altogether? Or maybe not quit like forever, but just, right now in the short term, should you stop, as in take a step back and just like not do any of it? And what I mean by that is, say you have any marketing platforms, Facebook, Instagram, Pinterest, YouTube, podcast, blog, anything you're doing on your website, email list, like whatever, TikTok, Twitter for all I care, like I don't know what it's called now, X, whatever marketing you are doing that is basically a platform outside of TPT itself, outside of product creation, outside of your listings and your previews and stuff, like anything that's just outside of TPT, any marketing. Whether you have one platform, 2 or 10, you are officially marketing as soon as you've got one. And is there a scenario in which you should stop just like all of it? Whether it's 1 or 10, you just stop all of them right now and you just completely stop doing it and you just focus on TPT. Like you just completely switch your direction and you're only making products and updating your old products and, adding covers, thumbnails, previews, SEO, descriptions, whatever, like all of that. And that's all you do. No marketing whatsoever. So that's what we're talking about. Should that ever happen? Should you stop marketing? And it's a big decision. I want to talk about why it can be tricky to stop. And I honestly think it's like this addictive thing. It's almost like a drug. But in the TPT world, there is this like peer pressure that you see within Facebook groups and on social media and stuff. And, I contribute to it, I admit, on things like this podcast. But you hear that other sellers are doing something. And when it comes to making money, it's very hard to resist the idea that you could do something that would make you more money. Do you know what I mean? Like you're looking at your sales and you're thinking, gosh, I'd love to make more money. I'd love to sell more resources. And you hear that Mary Lou in the Teacherpreneur Facebook group is, marketing on Instagram and she's got 10,000 followers and she makes loads of money every time she makes a post. And you're like, oh, I guess I should be on Instagram. Like that's how it starts. And it's very addictive, joining platforms because other people have done them. Other people have said it worked for them. And you usually tend to hear people's positive stories a lot more than their negative. Anyway, you tend to take on these things and it can be really addictive. Like a shiny object syndrome situation of taking on new stuff. You hear that there's a new platform that's like really hot right now, like TikTok. And one person says, hey, maybe you should join TikTok if you're struggling, with your sales, like try that. And then you're like, oh, okay. And you take this like one little comment very seriously and you just start something new. And it's a huge undertaking, taking on a new marketing platform. And then when you actually are doing it, it can be quite addictive. A lot of the social media platforms themselves, like Instagram, Facebook, those kind of places like TikTok, in themselves are actually quite addictive as a user. Like you get that kind of high dopamine sort of release, of consuming the content, and they do everything they can to keep you on there. So you can kind of feel like, well, I can't quit Instagram because I love Instagram. And it's as a user, you're quite addicted to it. So that can make it hard. And the other thing that makes it really difficult as well is just that, I think that sunk cost fallacy kind of thing. Oh, like I've put in all this time and money anyway. I can't give up now. Or I don't want to be a quitter. Like everyone else is still doing it. I've got to kind of, persevere. And sometimes it's just like this, expectation as a seller that you have to be marketing because everybody else is. And so you feel like if I stop, I'm an outlier. I'm weird and different from everyone else. I'm doing something wrong. I'm not doing my business correctly. And that's really stressful. So that's what I wanted to sort of share as to why it might be hard to quit. Just to sort of say that I understand how you feel. It's totally normal to cling on to something even if it's not working. And you're not alone in feeling that. I guess that's why I wanted to share that. But let's now talk about the examples of scenarios where I think it would be okay for you to full on quit marketing. The first, for my newer sellers listening, is if you are brand fresh new. I'm talking you opened your store like 3 months ago, maybe 6 months ago, like just literally months ago. You're brand new. Or maybe even, honestly, if you're even just in your first year, maybe you've been doing this like 8 months or so, but like, you really are very new. In that first year, you just, honestly, you have no idea what you're doing. You can barely figure out TPT itself with how to make great products and get your listings good. So honestly, when I hear people say that they've been on TPT for like 2 months and they've already got a website and an email list and a Pinterest account and an Instagram account, and I'm like, oh my gosh, what are you doing? If you are brand new, stop right now. Like literally stop right now. You should not be taking on marketing when you do not have the foundations of your business sorted first, which is TPT. And that's what you've done, is create a TPT store. That's the foundation of your business, that content, the products in your store that you create. You should not be worrying about the icing on the cake when you haven't even baked the cake yet, if you know what I mean. I love that analogy. I do think marketing is the icing on the cake, and it's brilliant once you have built cake. This beautiful like 3-tiered thing, like a giant wedding cake. You've built that up over years. And of course, you can spend that time adding the icing, but you've got to visualize it's almost like having a plate and just throwing a bunch of icing on it. You haven't even baked the cake yet. Anyway, enough of that analogy. Basically, if you are brand new, and the reason, I guess, I'll give a quick reason why. So you're not just like, oh, she says so, but who cares what she says? Like, truthfully, it will slow you down. It will slow you down because for every minute that you are doing marketing, you are not making products. For every minute that you are doing marketing, you're not learning how to make great products. You're not learning how to make great previews. And for every minute that you're marketing, you're not actually giving yourself time to set up your store and to truly create great thumbnails and write descriptions and stuff, because there's not enough hours in the day, especially if you're still in the classroom. And so if you are allowing yourself an hour each day to work on TPT and you're spending 45 minutes of it marketing, your business is going to grow extremely slowly because you are not focusing on the right things at the right time. And all those people that you see marketing have already established their businesses a lot of the time. Those bigger sellers that you might be looking up to in your niche, and they've got, thousands of reviews and hundreds of products. And yeah, they're on Instagram and Pinterest and stuff now, but they weren't in their first month. They were making products, and that's how they got to where they are. So yeah, quick little why on that one. So if you are brand new, just stop marketing. Trust me on that. Another sort of, this is under the umbrella of being new, by the way, but sometimes you might not literally be new, as in you haven't joined in 3 months ago, but this still applies to you. If you are earning under $100 a month, that's just a number. So don't feel like because you earned 101 that this doesn't apply to you. I mean, honestly, say 150, maybe you can get closer to 200, but I don't know, just, the small amount there of like the early hundreds, I guess is what I mean. But really under 100, if you're earning something like $50, $60 a month or something like that, you need to be making products and making great listings so that you can earn a couple of hundred a month or 1,000 a month or whatever. You're not going to get there by posting on Instagram. That's not going to magically get you over $100 a month. And I'm sure there's quite a few of you listening that are on that kind of under 100, maybe you're earning like $60, $70 a month or something. You want to crack the 3 digits. You need to do stuff on your store. That is what's going to crack the 3 digits. The money is going to literally get into your PayPal account from the products you sell. They need to be good. They need to have great listings. That is what's going to get you over that threshold. It's not going to be creating an email list. And I hear myself saying this. It's hard for me because I really do love things like Pinterest, my blog, my email list, things I know make me money, but I'm in a different position to someone who is earning under $100 a month. So what I'm doing does not apply. It's just completely different. So yeah, those kind of amounts of money, you just want to be focusing on your store. Like, how can you get to $100 a month? How can you get to $200 a month? Trust me, it's not marketing. It is your store. So yeah, I won't go on too much longer about that, but I just think that, the lower amounts of money, you need to be figuring out why you're not earning more. And it would be something to do with the products themselves or your listings that need fixing. And making a pin isn't going to magically change your business. That's the harsh truth. It's not going to suddenly like, oh, I joined Pinterest or I joined Facebook and I made a couple of posts and pins and suddenly magically I'm earning $1,000 a month. No, that's not going to happen. It just does not work like that. So take a step back from the marketing and figure out what is going on in your store. Analyze what's going on there. Another criteria thing, I think this usually applies to slightly newer sellers. If you have about less than 30 products in your store, say you've got 10, 20 products, that's, say like 10 products, for example, it's quite a smallish amount. You're not going to be making millions of dollars on 10 products, probably, especially if they're all like $1.50. So take the time to just focus on product creation. Getting yourself some decent products in your store, like 20 to 30 great products. Now, the numbers I'm dishing out here aren't things you can always apply to every business. One person's 30 products is very different to another person's if, one seller A has 30 products all under $5. They're like $1, $2, $3 resources. And seller B's 30 products are like $5 to $10 products and bundles. I mean, you've got two very different stores there. So the product number isn't really that indicative of how much money you could be making. But just to give you a rough idea, if you've really got quite a small store and you're very new and you've got a small amount of products, just keep grading. That's where the money is. So focus on that. Once you start getting, up to like 30, 40, 50 products, like you've got a decent amount now, definitely be looking back at how you can get them to sell. One thing, when I used to do coaching, which I don't get much time for anymore, thank you, Lily. I don't get a lot of time anymore since I had a baby, but I used to do coaching. And one of the things I nearly always said to my coaching students was, you have X number of products in your store, say it was 100, 200, whatever. I said, instead of creating more products or like trying to desperately market, why aren't you figuring out why those 200 products aren't selling? Like they're sitting there, there's 200 resources. Instead of like churning out more, trying to do some slapdash marketing, like go and honestly look at those 200 and make them sell, because there's something going on there that needs to be fixed. So whatever you have in your store right now could be making you more money. Go and look at that before you start thinking about, starting an email list or whatever. Like figure out what the issue is. This actually is, I hope this doesn't send me on a big tangent, but that mention of email list just reminded me, one of the reasons why this matters is because you can't market what you haven't made. There's no point having an email list on day one. I don't understand when people say that, because what on earth would you email people? You don't have any products. Like, yeah, you can't start things too early because you literally don't have content to market. A big thing here. When you are first starting out, you are learning the ropes. You have no idea what you're doing. And harsh truth here, but usually the products are pretty terrible. Like mine were when I was new. That's normal. You're figuring out what you're doing. You're learning. So trying to market something that is a hot mess, it's probably never going to sell. You've got to kind of, learn the ropes first and figure out how to create great stuff, great products, great listings that convert. And then you can start getting more traffic. No point sending people to a listing that's not very good, that no one wants to buy. You're kind of wasting your money there, especially if you were advertising with money like Facebook ads. Do not do that. Do not buy Facebook ads if you are new, because you're just throwing money down the drain. So that's another thing there. Yeah. So just with the marketing, it's just not wise to spend time on it when you haven't got a sure thing that is going to convert. You're wasting your time sending people to something. You literally don't have products, or you have products that aren't really very good or not selling, or you're brand new. You're wasting your time trying to flog that. It's just going to happen yet. So get those products sorted. All right, now we finished up with the new seller stuff. If you've been selling a bit longer than that, and thank you for listening this far. I know that might not apply to you. But let's move on to the other stuff. If you are plateauing, so it doesn't matter whether you're earning $300 a month, $3,000, $30,000. If you are seeing like a big plateau over a really long amount of time, like say years even, not just like, oh, I'm earned the same as last year, but like consistently you're noticing your business is truly plateauing, you might want to be looking at your store. And I mean, obviously you can, if you're one of those people, like I said, 30,000, if you've got quite a big business, then yeah, you might want to up your marketing a bit. You might want to keep growing your email list or something. But for the most part, if you've plateauing, it's like something has shifted. You had products that were selling, your store was growing, and then something like the brakes have come on and it's ground to a screeching halt. Like, why has that happened? What products have stopped selling? What products have started selling less? Did you create this bestseller 5 years ago that was really awesome and was really selling, and it's not selling now? And you've lost that kind of income that you were getting from that, and you've got to assess why. Is it really saturated and competitive now? Are you finding that all these other sellers have made that product in the last 5 years and you're kind of lost in the sea of others? There's usually something going on there. You need to assess what's going on with your bestsellers and just in your store in general. Why are you plateauing? And it will be something to do with the actual products. They aren't selling less, or they're not selling, or something's changed. So there's a lot of stuff to be looking at there, and it's mostly your data, heading over to your product statistics and your dashboard and doing some assessment. Oh, okay, I've just realized, that about 5 years ago, I was consistently making $500 a month from one product. And I've just looked now and realized in the last year or two, that product only now brings me 200, 100, nothing, whatever. You can start seeing those pattern shifts, and bestsellers change. They do. I did an Instagram post about this, like you've got to grieve that, but it's true. Sometimes things shift in education and on TPT's, platform, what people are searching for, what people want, what ranks, what's competitive, what's saturated. Things shift and that's out of your control. And a bestseller might just stop being a bestseller, but that's okay if something else picks up. So for me, I had a, set of posters a couple of years ago with Chevron on them and they were like best-selling. And then Chevron went out. But my business didn't crumble because something else just took its place as bestseller. Like I created more products and something else took its place. But if you don't have a replacement for that bestseller, that's sometimes an issue. If something is tanking and you're not kind of compensating. And so this is where focusing on your store is great. Looking at the data and figuring out the whys, creating more products, fixing your listings. You might realize that your outdated covers are a big issue. Previews you made 6 years ago just aren't cutting it anymore. The fact that you don't have previews on that product from 6 years ago. Like there's a lot of stuff that needs to be fixed to get out of this plateau, and it's not making another blog post. Like writing a blog post on a Sunday afternoon is not going to fix your business's plateau. That's the harsh truth of it. The action you need to be taking that Sunday afternoon is within your store and within your data. So I know I'm going on a bit long here about plateaus. That should probably be a whole other episode. But if you're really, truly plateauing, if you just in general, this is the next one. If you have neglected product creation and or optimization lately, you just found yourself, you've realized in the last 6 months that you pretty much spend all of your time on your Instagram and growing your list and writing blog posts and dealing with your VAs and emails and bits and bobs. And you're like, when was the last time I created a product? Has it been 6 months or a year? I haven't created anything in ages. Or, gosh, when was the last time I updated, products? My old stuff's getting really skanky. It's sitting there festering. I haven't updated in ages. I'm like, when was the last time I went through my data and really refreshed my covers? I haven't done that in ages. If you're being honest, you might be someone that has totally neglected TPT in favor of marketing. 80-20 rule, Pareto principle. Are you spending 80% of your time now on marketing and 20% on TPT? Well, it should definitely be the other way around. You should be spending 80% of your time, on the important stuff. We tend to do that. We tend to fall into that trap of 80% of our time on the things that bring us 20% of our money. And that's not wise. So, focus back on TPT. If you've just realized, oh my goodness, I'm neglecting it, switch gears for a second and go back to the thing that really matters. And here's another one, another kind of last one I want to share. Should you stop marketing altogether? If your store is a mess, just an absolute mess. And this is just, you need to be honest with yourself here. If you've been selling a few years, and this I guess applies to newer sellers too. If you say you've taken a course and you've kind of learned how to do things now and you're like, oh my goodness, the stuff I first made is terrible. Or if you're an established seller, the stuff you made in 2014 looks awful. You need to look at your store and be honest with yourself. Is it a hot mess? I'm talking like those rectangular covers with the fuzzy borders and the chevron and the old clip art and stuff like that. I'm talking like the dingy product photography or not having product photography or no previews. Your thumbnails are terrible. You never did SEO on those old resources. Your descriptions are 2 lines long. I don't know. Your store needs work. Maybe your products themselves are just old and you have not updated them. I have a pretty much kind of a hard and fast rule with myself. I don't really like resources being more than 4 or 5 years old, because I joined in late 2015 and I made a lot of stuff around that. I made a few things around 2016, 17, all that. I had a big product creation push in 2018, 2019. And as of recording now, because it's the end of 2023, I'm recording this, those products I made in 2018 are getting to, being nearly 5 years old, some of them. And I'm like, that's not okay for me. I don't like things getting beyond 5 years, but honestly, even the 4 or 5 year mark is bad for me. I love to have things be updated in the last 2 to 3 years. So I know that everything in my store is kind of up to scratch. And that's a big undertaking, by the way. You might want to hire for this if you haven't got the capacity, but you should not be having stuff in your store that is old or just, new, but terrible because it's when you didn't know what you were doing. Maybe it's a newer seller. But yeah, be honest with yourself. I bet many of us have that. A lot of stuff in our store needs a refresh. And if your store is a hot mess, then your sales are probably not going to be as great as they could be. And so stop marketing and go and fix your store. I need to wrap this episode up. It went way longer than I envisioned it would. Anyway, just a quick summary. Should you stop marketing altogether? If you're brand new, you're earning under $100 a month or smaller amount than you'd like, maybe just like 200 and you want to earn more. If you've got less than 30 products or just like a really small store in general, you're plateauing big time. If you've neglected your store in terms of product creation and optimization and you just feel like when was the last time you made a product, you can't even remember, like it's just gotten to that point of neglect. And then similarly, if you just find that your store is a mess, I'm talking old products or things you just didn't know what you were doing on and it's just, there's some really ugly stuff on there. Those are some things to consider that might make you just stop marketing. And I will say quickly what I mean by that would be literally putting on the brakes and stopping everything. Stopping with the posting on Instagram, stopping the blog post you're planning on writing next week. Like, this is not like, oh, taking a step back, maybe working on it slightly less. Like, I'm talking stopping. There are scenarios where you would just work on your marketing slightly less. Maybe you will, listening to this, to just, scale things back a bit. Maybe you'll hire someone. That way you're stopping, but, someone else is doing it if you know you need to have it. But honestly, I think if you're one of these people, especially if you're new, in terms of small stores, small earnings, a really scary plateau that, you've been in a long time, and a store that's a hot mess, like I think those are pretty strong criteria for stopping that blog post you're planning to write, because you've got some serious issues here, some serious issues that need fixing, some serious products that need creating and fixing, and listings that need fixing. You've got work to do on your store, my friend. So I think that I'm serious, like just stopping the marketing. And it's a scary thing. You're probably thinking, I can't. What if I can't just like not email my list, or I can't just like not be on Facebook? Like, trust me, the world will not end and your business will not crumble because you didn't post on Facebook. In fact, to be honest, it will crumble if you continue the way you're going. That's my harsh truth for you. If you are spinning your wheels on all the marketing and you're so desperate to get these social media posts out because you think that the world will, fall apart if you haven't, trust me, your business is actually going to crumble because you are neglecting the wrong stuff. You got to think of it like your business is like a big house and it is crumbling. Like the foundations are just not, things are shaky, things are bad. I'm not really good with this house stuff. As an analogy, it was a terrible idea. But anyway, things are not looking good. And you're out the front, just keep adding coats of paint on top of the things that are like literally rotting away. Like the wood is rotting, but you just keep like slapping on paint and you're like not fixing the foundations. The thing is just crumbling. You know what I mean? Your band-aiding approach here is thinking that a few more Facebook posts, another email is going to fix your business. It's not. There's something else going on and you need to look at that. I was going to touch on something else in this episode. I don't think I've got time now, honestly. And this is an iffy one, but when I was planning out this criteria of the things that I think would make you stop marketing, I thought, okay, what about some of the really established sellers I know who suffered when personalized search came about and their businesses just never really recovered and their sales are down? We're not talking plateau. We're talking like 40% down from last year and the year before and whatever. And I thought, would I add that in as a criteria for anyone listening and say, hey, if that's you, stop marketing? But this is an iffy one. I don't want to make those kind of judgments on, if you've got quite an established business, it's very different. You might not be able to stop some of these platforms. You might have teams you hire, and maybe fixing up your store isn't going to fix your issue. You might actually need to double down on your email list. Like it's different when you're at that point in your journey. And that's why I didn't want to talk about that this week. I think that's a whole nother thing. But I guess if you're listening and your sales are really, really down, maybe you can sort of say, what are you doing right now? Is it working? No. Well, then maybe you need to change. And I think that's just a good thing in general with your business. The definition of insanity, isn't it? Like just doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. So like you're doing the same thing the last few months or the last year or the last few years. Things aren't going right. Well, what you're doing is not right. Just change things up. And maybe like a completely crazy approach of just like stopping marketing might be the way to go. You just completely stop and you just start going back to basics, go back to the foundation of your business. And, maybe you're an established seller and you can't really remember the last time you made a new product. You're so focused on that other stuff now. You've really lost the roots. You've lost the reason why you even started TPT. You've become so far removed from that seller that, started because they just wanted that creative outlet. Like maybe you need to go back to your roots. And that's something to think about. I just want to be mindful with that one because I don't think sitting here telling you to make more products and stop your email list is necessarily good advice for someone that is really established, that's having that whole decrease in sales. Like that doesn't necessarily apply. Everyone's business is different and I don't know that would be advice I'd want to share. But it's something to think about. And it just might be about readjusting how you spend your time and switching gears a bit. Anyway, I said I was going to wrap this up and I haven't. I'm still rambling. Anyway, big decision. But I really think, in general, if your sales and your store isn't where you want it to be, you need a change. I guess I say that because right now I feel like my business is in a good place, despite the fact I don't work on it as much as I did before Lily. But my sales are increasing, I'm earning an amount that I feel is comfortable, and I'm enjoying what I do. And I just don't feel like my business is on thin ice at the moment. I'm enjoying it. So I'm just going to keep doing what I'm doing. Obviously, what I'm doing is okay. It's working. I've got a really good balance at the moment where I do quite a lot of focus on my store and I don't get too bogged down with marketing. That might be part of why my business is doing okay, is I'm really mindful with that whole essentialism book I read. And I talked about that many episodes ago, but prioritizing the right stuff. If I'm sitting down to work on TPT, I really am creating products. I'm not getting too distracted by blogging, whatever. So something to think about. But yeah, that I'm in a place where I don't feel like I need to change things, but you might be listening and you might be thinking, my sales are just down the drain right now. Like something is not working, and you might need to just completely shift what you're doing and just completely change your habits. And it might just be, you really, I guess, harsh truth. Maybe it's going back to your roots and going back to TPT, because you might be listening thinking like, oh, going and making another product or like fixing cover, it's like not going to change the fact my sales are down by thousands of dollars. Like, well, I don't know. You could start to gradually fix things up. Like you think about, gosh, I'm with the analogies, I just don't stop, do I? But I don't know, say you've got some kind of a swimming pool that's leaking, and it's leaking really, really bad. And like little patches are not going to fix the big picture here. I'm not going to tell you that one little patch fix is going to change anything. But just standing there watching it leak, like just feeling like you're doing nothing, that can be frustrating. You just don't feel like you're making any changes. It just feels like, sometimes it feels like you've got to be doing something. You've got to try and you've got to make some little changes that hopefully in the long term will have a big impact. Like you might not be able to do anything right now that is going to magically bring you thousands of dollars and bring your sales back to where they were. Maybe that'll never happen because this is out of your control with the way TPT has changed their algorithms and all in the economy and all that. But could you do something today that will increase things in a year just by a little bit? Like instead of, just sitting there feeling frustrated and doing nothing, or, making another Pinterest pin going, I'm going to be honest, I'm going to go back into my store and I'm going to work my butt off to get these listings amazing. The reason I say this is because I don't think there is a single seller on Teachers Pay Teachers. And I'm generalizing here. I honestly don't think there's a single seller who can say that every resource in their store is amazing and every listing in their store is truly perfectly optimized. I don't think that exists. I think that we tend to have hundreds of resources the more we sell. And there's always a bunch in there that are worse sellers. And there's always a bunch that are old and not updated. And there's always a bunch that don't have previews and old covers. And if you're listening, I bet you that's you. I defy you. If you want to message me and say, actually, I think you're wrong, be sure to. But I highly doubt any of you can, because we have so many products and there's not enough time in the day. So honestly, it's very hard to maintain a store. I truly think if you're honest with yourself, there is something in your store that could be fixed. There is a product that needs updating. There's a preview that needs to be made. There's something you could do. So do that today and reap the benefits of that maybe in 6 months or a year's time. It can make a big difference. I just think that's something to think about. I need to wrap this up. I have gone on. Oh my goodness. I am so, so sorry. I'm hoping though, you can forgive me for this, that there was some value in this and that it helped. I'm really, really sorry. I honestly was going to talk for 10 minutes. That never happens. Okay, I'm going to stop. I'm going to stop right now. I'm going to put a link in the show notes to my Instagram at Terrific Selling Tactics. Send me a message and tell me if any of this resonated with you. Tell me if you feel like any of this is going to apply and you're going to try any of it. Be sure to also call me out if you feel like I'm talking nonsense and you actually don't agree and you're like, hey, the economy is bad right now. It's out of our control. Me fixing a preview is not going to fix that. I resent you saying that. You can call me out if you want to, but let's just message and talk about it. Sometimes it's nice to talk to another seller, to vent our feelings and to just talk. So you can talk to me whenever you want. I would love to chat to you. I am so, so sorry this went on so long. Have a terrific day, whatever is left of it after this extremely long episode.
Thank you for listening to this episode of The Terrific Teacherpreneur. If you're enjoying the show, please feel free to rate, subscribe, and review on your preferred podcast listening platform. We really appreciate that effort. Come back for more actionable tips and helpful wisdom in the next episode with your host, Alex. Until then.